Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour, Shane Black from Hook'emHeadlines.com. Hook'em Horn Show. This week is our Red River Shootout week. Last time the Texas and OU meet as Big 12 foes in Red River. Obviously, the Red River will continue in the SEC, but this is it. First time that Texas and OU have both been undefeated heading into Red River since 2011. Tweeted it out today. This was I think 2011 was the last time that OU scored a point on Texas while Brent Venables was a Sooners coach. At that time, Moves Like Jagger by Maroon 5 was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. A lot of times obviously gone by since then, but we
were still using iPods back then.
Yeah. This is an exciting game though, because obviously the Alabama game had a lot of uncertainty heading into it, but I think a lot of that was just because it was early in the season game. You can throw a lot of previous trends out the window for OU and Texas. And I mean, I don't see many, I see some, but I don't see many people legitimately thinking that either team has a chance to blow the other one out. I might feel a little bit differently in Texas's chances to, get a sizable win over OU if JT Sanders was fully healthy coming into this game. That's not the case. And so, I mean, this game's going to be, I think, a lot of fun back and forth. And, I think you're also going to see a lot of offense this weekend. I know the over-under right now is at 60.5 points. Texas is a 6.5 point favorite, as of the last time I checked Caesars Sportsbook a couple of hours ago. I think there's a lot of good stuff for Texas heading into this game, though. Texas coming off that 40-14 win over number 24 Kansas. Got 2 ranked wins coming into this one. How are y'all feeling about this?
The same way I feel about every single Red Rivalry. It's like quantum mechanics. It doesn't make any sense. Don't try to make it make sense. I say that as a person who's actually studying physics at the graduate level. So there's a lot of parallel there. This is probably, though, the first time I feel in the last decade plus that Texas has the better team and should win. So that's exciting. But I just throw all the rules out in the Red River Rivalry. I mean, did anyone expect that Texas team that went 5-7 in 2015 to just annihilate that Oklahoma team that I believe made the playoff that year, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they were. They lost to Clemson by 20.
Right, I remember
in the playoff semifinal game. That's right. That was the Orange Bowl.
Right. Right. Okay. So that just shows you that it's a crazy thing, and all 4 of Tom Herman's Red River rivalries, Texas could have won and just kind of found ways to lose in those, and all those teams, OU was better, clearly. And then, of course, we'll never forget the 2021 Red River rivalry where somehow where Jesus in the form of Caleb Williams came off the bench and won them that one. So, again, you just never know what to think about this one. Shane, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm still, I think, trying to get over that kind of battered fan syndrome where I'm always expecting something horrible to happen. I think Targ makes a good point. You just kind of throw out the records when this game comes around. But this year, both teams 5-0. The most highly anticipated Red River game since, I think you could say, 2008. Bradford, and I think those were 2 top 5 teams, Bradford and McCoy. But I think an interesting angle is just the national consequence for this game, because I do think if you get a 12-1 Big 12 champion, that team will be in the college football playoff. And whatever team loses this game, that college football playoff chance, the margin becomes razor thin. And you're going to have to win 7 games in a row to even put yourself in that position. So I think the winner of this game puts themselves in not only a fantastic driver's seat in the Big 12, but in the national landscape as well, especially given, the state of the Big 12. These 2 clearly the best teams in the conference. So they're both going to be favored the rest of the way. So I think the winner of this game is going to set themselves up very nicely, having a chance to make the college football playoff.
Can I have a follow-up to that, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I put out right after the Kansas game on Twitter that regardless of who wins this game, both teams will control their path through the college football playoff and the Big 12 championship game. So the sky will not be falling regardless of what happens, although you certainly want to go into the bye week 6-0 recover, and then knowing you have that. If you do lose a game, you have a loss that you can give up in your pocket, rather than saying, "Okay, I've already lost. Now I have to win every game." I mean, crazy losses happen. Ask Ohio State; it seems to happen to them every year, especially under Urban Meyer. It just when like Indiana or some other team would just come out and beat them. It was Purdue with Meyer, but yeah.
Oh yeah, Rondale Moore. Um, yeah, not open wound. So for the Oklahoma game this weekend, there's a few thoughts that I have in my mind, right? So, this video and the way we do these videos now, we talk about reasons why Texas, we can cover just why Texas would be or why Texas would dominate OU this weekend. I'm going to take it from the perspective of why Texas could dominate. More than likely, it's the factors I think they could go either way toward Texas winning the game. While you can essentially throw previous trends out the window for this one, I don't know how many previous trends for Oklahoma are super helpful heading into this game. There's a few that you could pick apart here and there that help. I mean, I think it's a bad sign for OU that they're averaging like three.
I just found one actually. So Texas they've scored 30 points in the previous 5 games, and they've held teams under 30 the previous 10 games. And OU was held under 30 by SMU and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, a serious trend that I can actually see being kind of significant.
Yeah, and I was going to make a similar point with OU's offense that they've been shut down in ways against, I would say more in the first half against Iowa State, and then they weren't shut down. That's not a good way to put it, but the offense was not looking as good, specifically against Cincinnati and SMU, but against Iowa State, I think that's Dylan Gabriel's second lowest graded start of the season. And then OU still wasn't doing much running the ball in that game, I don't think. I think the good bulk of their production in that game was coming through the air. Yeah. You have 157 yards. They do get 2 rushing scores, but 3.8 yards per carry. And I think a lot of that came from Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel, I will say this, has been running the ball a good bit. He has 3 rushing touchdowns in the first 2 Big 12 games for OU. So let's not overlook that threat. But OU, they've been using a similar offensive script the first 2 weeks of the season. Dylan Gabriel goes 26 of 38 the first week, 26 of 39 the second week in Big 12 play for OU. 322, 366 for passing yards. So, and running the ball, it's a similar story. And so I think the point I'm trying to make here is the trends you can get are OU.
He runs up the middle like he's been running. Jalen Catalon's going to take his head off.
Yeah. Well,
Jalen Catalon will take his head off trying to take his head off.
Well, I think David Benda, man, he's been getting to the quarterback a lot this season. Don't doubt what David Benda can do. I think in those situations, I know that Kansas.
Oh, not at all. I'm just saying Catalan is the kind of guy that hits to hurt. That's what he's trying.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So,
and
the fact that Jason Bean saw him coming, secured the ball, and still got laid the bleep out with the ball fumbling, that just tells you like Jalen Catalan's a little engine that could, and he's a headhunter. He'll be on the prowl for Dylan Gabriel if he starts running up the middle.
Yeah, that's fair. And so anyway, the trends that I'm saying here, Dylan Gabriel hasn't played quite as well as he did in non-conference play against the Big 12. I think that's probably a little problematic eventually for OU, but maybe not. I mean, his stats have still been pretty solid, but he struggled at times against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's defensive front kind of put OU off schedule. OU did not run the ball well at all against Cincinnati. 103 rushing yards, 3 yards per carry, 1 rushing score. And then the other trend for OU that is, and we'll get into this later, something that concerns me a little bit on the Texas front is OU is they might be the most improved defense in the Big 12 this year. They're tackling better. They do have better depth. I think they're a more cohesive unit at almost all levels. They have that big staple playmaker at linebacker that Brent Venables' defense have kind of become known for having. Danny Stutzman, He's one of the best linebackers in the Big 12 this year, and he's doing a little bit of everything for them. Leads them in tackles, things like 49 combined tackles already. Leads them in sacks, tackles for loss. He's at 9 TFLs already. So point being that, I think their defense is better. This stuff's been second year in the system, third year on campus at OU. And as a whole, Texas, they played some good teams this year, but again, this is Red River. They're going to lay it all out on the line in this one. I mean, OU's definitely going to be motivated to come into this one. Venables is going to have some pretty wild stuff with his multiple 4-3 defense. I think throwing some different pressures at Quinn. And I think you're probably going to see a pretty wild game here in the first half on Saturday. I think that both coaches have had stuff drawn up, and it's on opposite sides of the ball, Like maybe PK has some cool blitzes and stuff drawn up for the defense. I'm sure that that's there. But Jeff Lebby's not a guy that tends to throw a whole lot of trickeration at you. He's a pretty on-script guy. Maybe that changes this weekend. I'm just going by previous trends, but I followed Jeff Lebby for a little while, and that seems to be the case. So let's go ahead and get into just the points here of why Texas could beat or dominate OU. And, y'all can throw your reasons out there for sure. I've got the article coming up on the site tomorrow on this. The first thing that I want to mention is just Dillon Gabriel's inconsistencies throwing beyond 10 air yards. Dillon Gabriel this season, I know that I can get some weird looks from this. I know a lot of people know that Dillon Gabriel is not the best deep ball thrower, but it needs to be said that he's not the best intermediate ball thrower when you're looking at the analytics. And even when you're watching film, any stuff really beyond like 12 to 14 yards, he's not super efficient. He's rated as the ninth best quarterback in the Big 12 in passing grade on intermediate throws. I think he's ranked like 5th or something on deep ball attempts, but I'm not super scared of what Dillon Gabriel can do in the intermediate and deep passing game based off what we've seen. The only thing that might concern me there is our safety play. Dillon Gabriel gets the ball out so fast. He's got the quickest time to throw in the Big 12 this year that, he's got that 3-step drop. They're going to get it out. They do a lot of short, quick slants, quick curls, quick in routes, things like that. A lot of screens as well. I think that's where OU is going to try to do the bulk of their damage. Maybe getting some intermediate stuff in there, maybe 10 to 15 yards downfield, but that puts them off script. This is a very scripted offense. Dillon Gabriel is great at doing, I think, what Lebby wants him to do and what they've done early this season and what they did at times last year. But I think when they get off schedule, you're going to start seeing some issues here. The only other thing I can think is that, Dillon Gabriel eventually will potentially be an issue for us with his dual threat ability. He can occupy that opposite side backer with his ability to run. He's been starting to do that a little bit more. In this season, he's got 8 scrambles for, I believe, 60 yards and a touchdown. He's picked up 4 first downs on scramble plays. And so that element of his game is certainly there. But I think that the limited passing game, in terms of their ability to stretch the field, can play to Texas's advantage a little bit here. That's my thought on that. What I know that y'all have to have some thoughts about Dillon Gabriel and his kind of the lack of stretching the field they've done this year.
Andrew, I think you laid it out there pretty well, so thank you. I think that Dillon Gabriel knows Jeff Lebby's offense like the back of his hand. They've been together a long time. And I think that a lot of what he does well plays well into what PK takes away well. I think that Jahdae Barron is a great eraser on those kind of to the sideline passes behind the line of scrimmage, things like that. So they don't have the. I mean, this is the real issue I see with Oklahoma's offense. I don't see in Oklahoma the CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown receivers that always gave Texas problems, the guys that could just take over a game, or a game that even when Texas was kind of playing well, they were that X factor that like Texas just couldn't stop them. I don't see that receiver at Oklahoma anymore. That's not to say that there's not talent at Oklahoma. I think Nick Anderson is a very talented guy. Also, the problem, the irony of this game is it's not that Gabriel can't throw the deep ball, but it's not like a strength. Not that it's a strength of Quinn Ewers yet. I think Quinn's gotten a lot better at it. But the fact that it's not is bad for Oklahoma, because that's where they could really give Texas trouble with the safety play. But if it's not a strength of yours anyway, that's not really going to help you. Also, deep shots required time to set up, and I'm not sure that the interior defensive line of Oklahoma is going to stop Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat, because while the left tackle, like Caden Proctor for Alabama, he's a rookie, he's a true freshman. The inside interior of Alabama's offensive line is still pretty solid. They were moving the ball well against Ole Miss and other people. So the fact that Texas was able just to kind of control the line of scrimmage against them, they're certainly much better than Oklahoma. So I think there will be some problems there. But the main thing, take away all that, I can't recall the last time I've seen an Oklahoma team that just couldn't run the ball. This Oklahoma team cannot run the ball, and they even will admit that. We were talking about several of the guys on our Oklahoma friends on Twitter. Even they will admit that Oklahoma can't run the ball. It's 6 games in, and it's just like it's not even worth trying to do at this point. It's like it's not going to happen. And if you can't run the ball against Iowa State, if you can't run the ball against Cincinnati, you're not going to run the ball against Texas, because Alabama couldn't run it against Texas. Benda and Ford are going to shut you down if you get past Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat. And if you try to go to the sidelines, we have people who will chase you down there too. I know that Bug Thompson gives us a little trepidation with the deep balls, but he's very good in run support, and he's very good at diagnosing these types of things. So I don't see that trend changing.
Keaton Crawford.
Yeah, Keaton Crawford. No, well, I think both of them.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Bug Thompson. Okay, yeah.
I did say Thompson.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The safeties are not great with the deep ball. It doesn't matter who it is.
No,
except maybe Derek Williams, but I don't really know because he hasn't been really back there. But as far as stopping the run, and I think that's the key, is if you make them throw all day, that's not going to work. You're going to have to run the ball. So there's just a lot of things that play into Texas's hands. But again, maybe this is the one day that it all works out and they run the ball well, and then the next week you're like, oh yeah, we really can't run the ball, but we just had so much adrenaline, it just boom. Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at. Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, I think going back to the Dylan Gabriel conversation, Ian Boyd of Inside Texas had a good piece he posted earlier today, and it was talking about the shots landed by Gabriel, which was a pass traveling 25 or more yards in the air. Against Tulsa, he had 5. Against Iowa State, he had 4. And against Arkansas State, he had 3. And those were teams that could not get pressure on Gabriel at all. So he had more time to throw. And eventually, guys like Nick Anderson came open deep. But against Cincinnati and SMU, 2 teams that did get a lot of pressure on Gabriel and made him feel uncomfortable in the pocket, he had just 1 combined shot landed. So I think Texas, like Tarik mentioned, definitely should be able to get some pressure on him. And I think that's just going to, stymie the whole offense and limit any potential shots that they can take. I think if Oklahoma does want to beat Texas, it's going to take 50-plus pass attempts from Gabriel and a lot of underneath stuff. Like Andrew, you mentioned, that's kind of where he excels, is that dink and dunk type stuff. And I do think he does pose a problem there. But I also think that Texas should be able to get some pressure just with, 4-man fronts. And I think PK is going to be a little exotic with how he uses Anthony Hill and Benda and potentially Jahdae Barron off the edge. But I don't think he's going to have to bring a ton of guys. So I think there's going to be plenty of help in the back end in regard to protecting the deep shot and, getting a little aggressive and forcing, Gabriel to make some reads on those shorter throws. Because I do, in the back of my mind, could see Oklahoma just start moving the ball 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. And that's something that certainly scares me. So I think it's important for Texas to get pressure in base scheme and you kind of let your secondary just match up as it will. And we know Gabriel doesn't have the strongest of arms, so him throwing to the opposite side of the field could be an issue. could see Jahdae Barron or Terrence Brooks baiting him into a throw and getting a game-changing interception. Something I'd watch for.
Yeah, I really like the matchups here for Terrence Brooks and Jahdae Barron specifically, because I think that Brooks is really good with that short passing game, or defend. Yeah, I think he's really good at defending that. And Jahdae Barron, I mean, he's good all over the place, but with how much, with how much stuff around the line of scrimmage OU likes to run, I mean, that's what Jahdae Barron lives on, blowing up those plays. And so, Tark and Shane, y'all mentioned it, but yeah, I mean, it's that. The matchup on the boundary is still going to be something to watch. The thing that scares me, and I always talk about a few things that concern me each game, and it is Nick Anderson. I think Tark, I know you mentioned it, that Nick Anderson is, a dude in the receiving game for OU, and that goes without saying. He's the highest graded receiver in the Big 12 right now. He leads the Big 12 in receiving touchdowns, and he's only got like 10 or 12, actually like 8 or 10 catches on the season, and so. Like 27.9 yards per catch, no drops. The guy's really good, and he's only a redshirt freshman. I think he's going to be more of a problem in future Red River games, but I don't doubt that they're going to try to get him the ball. Andrell Anthony, I think, is also pretty good. I think he's better than Farouk. I just think Farouk has trouble getting separation. So, but valid points. Next thing I had up in terms of why I think Texas can. Well, y'all mentioned it. Why I think Texas could dominate OU, and it's if they can't get the ground game going. I mean, OU right now is having a ton of trouble getting the ground game going. I don't think it was ever ideal for OU to have Marcus Major 5 games into the season be 5 carries away from tying a career high. He's averaging 3.9 a carry. I think he's been the guy getting most of the touches this year. Granted, the most efficient has been the junior transfer, Tawi Walker. I think he's going to get the bulk of the looks this weekend. But Javonte Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, they really haven't been, I think, what a lot of people thought they would be this season. I had high hopes for Javonte Barnes. I thought he looked really good last year. He's doing okay this year, but, no one's really taking a hold of it.
Barnes should have flipped to USC with everybody else when Lincoln Riley left.
Yeah, I mean, and the offensive line, like the interior line's not doing them any favors. I think runs to the A and the B gaps, OU is averaging a little north of 3 yards per carry on the season. I think I ran the stat today. It's like 3.1. They're running the ball a lot. I think it's some 53% of their play calls are run plays. And so they try to keep balance in the offense. It's just not happening. When you're 53% of your play calls are runs and only, I think it's like 30% of your total offensive yards are rushing yards.
That's because they know they can't have Gabriel throwing 50 times a game.
Right.
Or maybe even 60 times a game if it came to that.
Well, and early in the season too, they were able to run the ball, and it just didn't really matter when they were up by 1 million points against teams like Tulsa and Arkansas State. Even SMU, even as close as that game was, SMU wasn't getting points on the board, and so OU was just trying to bleed the clock late. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't scare me, but the thing is for Texas, if you can drive their offensive line back, and again, you can keep this OU offense off schedule, mainly if you put Dylan Gabriel in a lot of 3rd and long situations, and then you're forcing them into longer 3rd down throws. Obviously, that puts you in a very advantageous spot because then your pass rushers pinning their ears back. They're able to get to Gabriel, a guy that I think is like 8th or 9th in terms of passing grade this year under pressure. And I think for Texas, you can have those 4 or 5 man pressure looks, and especially if you're in 3rd and long situations, I think that's going to be really effective against Dylan Gabriel. Texas, this defense got a lot of speed. I'm not super worried about it in 3rd and long situations. Gabriel picking up a ton of yards. I think we faced faster quarterbacks. I think Jason Bean's probably a little bit faster, just straight line than Gabriel. Jalen Milroe definitely is a better runner. So I'm going too far down this rabbit hole, but I think if OU comes out of this game averaging 3 yards a carry, as they did against Iowa State, I'd put it at a 95% chance that Texas wins this game, barring, again, some catastrophic mistakes by the Longhorns, but I'll get into that part a little bit later. As long as they avoid that, make Dylan Gabriel throw it 40 or 50 times, beat you with his arm. Texas is going to have a great chance to win this one.
Nothing further to add.
Jane, you got anything you wanted to mention on the OU ground game?
No, I think you covered it. And I think it kind of goes back to what Tarik was talking about with the wide receivers. Just the skill talent isn't there like it was in the Lincoln Riley era. Like there's no one that really scares me that I think can completely take over this game. And unfortunately for the Sooners and their fans, I think, even JT Sanders aside, I think there are 3 or 4 guys on Texas who they have to be nervous about, where on the flip side, I like our matchups all the way around on the defensive side of the ball.
And Sanders will play on Saturday. So
yeah.
I think so too. I guess that's a fair point to get into this. Actually, you know what? I'll save the Sanders update for later. Let's get through the rest of these points. So the last 2 things that I had, I'll start with first one. I think that the way that Texas has had a balanced offensive attack the last few weeks. I mean, I know that they've tried to maintain the balance all season, but just not running the ball super well against Rice or Wyoming. Wyoming, I guess, they were better in the second half. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks had a big game. But I think the fact that Texas can have a balanced offense in this game, I know OU defends the run well, but I think we'll be able to, put enough pressure on that OU defense and Jonathan Brooks has been playing more than well enough that we're going to get at least 4.5 yards per carry around that clip in this game. You have a balanced offense in this game. Doesn't mean that Quinn Ewers has to win the game with his arm. That just means he has to have a good game. Keeps you on script. You can, makes it a lot easier to win the possession battle. Keep your defense fresh. You can keep those guys rotating up front. It's a very high level point, but if Texas is able to run the ball again at a moderately successful clip, I don't think they have to dominate on the ground, because I don't think that there's necessarily a great chance of that happening. I think OU's defensive front is definitely good enough to prevent what Texas was able to do to Kansas on the ground.
I don't know about that. Reason being, I think Texas could spread receivers out and run the ball that way, where you'd have to watch everybody. So that's one thing. Another is, I think people just don't realize how good Jonathan Brooks is. That guy's breaking tackles, and all he needs is just a little bit, and he's just gone. There's been a few runs where I'm just like, how did he do that? Now, and the other thing I thought was one mistake we made versus Alabama was you should have ran Brooks more. Brooks was really moving the ball well against Alabama's front. And I thought it was a great thing for him to seal the game on that last run. 3rd and 7, runs it straight up the middle, boom. So if you can run against those guys, I think you can run on anyone. And I don't think Oklahoma's anywhere near as good as Alabama's front 7 is. I think they are improved. I think Stuntsman's good. I think some of their interior defensive line is good. But I think the offensive line of Texas is also very good. And when you have road graders like Devon Campbell and Kelvin Banks, and Christian Jones, I'd add in there too, you're gonna break free once in a while. And also, when they start coming up, I think Quinn's bread and butter is play action pass. So it's kind of a win-win that way. And that's how Sark likes it. He likes to run the ball and then take it over the top or over the middle when the guys come up, where Quinn's been lethal, as they found out last year.
I think it depends on how limited he is, but yeah, so here, I should have framed this a different way. Yes, Tarik, I do agree that obviously Jonathan Brooks is playing really well. I posted this on Twitter this week. I think he's playing like the best running back in the nation in the last 3 weeks. 3rd in the FBS in rushing yards this season. He is the highest graded running back in the Big 12 and in that span. And he's just playing at a different level right now. And so the reason I do think that OU is better up front than anyone we've played but Alabama, kind of like you said, Tarik. Here's the difference, though, is I don't know that Alabama had run-stopping linebacker as good as Stutzman. I think they have good linebackers, but I think that Stutzman is able to make a lot of plays for them. And so, I mean, and I like DeJoun Terry. I think he's a decent nose tackle. Shane, you had anything you wanted to add?
I think Venables is going to have to choose what he wants to stop. I don't think there's any way to completely stymie the whole Texas offense. I think we all know that. So if he comes out and is committed to, having, 6 or 7 guys in the box and he's leaving some of his, bigger corners one-on-one, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But if he does, then I think Sark's just kind of take what Venables gives him. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but it very well could. And in that sense, I don't think Sark's dumb enough to just keep running it into a wall. Because if Oklahoma is able to bring more men than Texas can block, Tarik mentioned JB's pretty good at slipping tackles, but that then becomes a completely different conversation if it's 7 against 6 or 6 against 5 every single time. So I think it's one of those things where Sark's going to have to adapt, and he's certainly gonna have it scripted up the first couple series, but after that he's going to have to adapt to the defense, and I'm confident that he will.
Yeah, you guys kind of summed up well, I guess, the point I was trying to get to, where I do think that this is going to be a big game for Jonathan Brooks. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's going to do what he did to Kansas, but I think he'll help keep the Texas offense balanced. I'm just not expecting him to be rushing for over 200 yards. I'm expecting us probably to be closer to a clip between 4 and 5 yards per carry this week. But my point is, I think that range is enough that it keeps the Texas offense balanced. It keeps us in rhythm and puts us in a really good spot to win this game if the ground game is getting the necessary production, setting up things well for Quinn. The last thing, and I know we kind of talked about it earlier with Dillon Gabriel, but I guess I wanted to hammer home this point a little bit further. I think that Texas's defensive line depth, I mean, it's obviously something that OU hasn't faced yet this season. I think that Devontae Sweat and Byron Murphy are going to give OU's interior offensive line a lot more than they can handle on Saturday. I think Alfred Collins could be an issue. Vernon Broughton, I mean, he's been great this season. I think you're going to see him making an impact on the pass rush again as well. OU's weak point, I mentioned it earlier, I think, is that offensive guard. Savion Byrd and McCade Matour. McCade Matour. I don't think they're the bright spot of the offensive line for OU by any means. Andrew Rame is decent at center. He's one of the better centers in the Big 12. But you can press that interior offensive line, collapse the pocket. Again, that's going to make life really, really difficult for Dillon Gabriel. It's not something he's used to facing, and prevents what they can do, or prevents kind of what they can do with a range of different run play options. They're an offense that doesn't really have like one exact run play. They do run a lot of gap and zone stuff. And so if you can make any way you can make this offense one-dimensional or kind of box Levy in, you're going to greatly increase your chances of winning this game. So I think Texas, I obviously predict Texas is going to win the battle in the trenches, probably on both sides of the ball, but especially on defense. And yeah.
And we've seen the depth, rear its head in the fourth quarters this year, where at that point Texas has just completely worn out the opposition. And Texas has it on the defensive line. They have it really everywhere on the defense, except linebacker might be a little thin. But, Texas has the talent and the depth, which is something that we haven't said in a while. And they're just wearing teams down by the fourth quarter. You really start to see it. So I think that's something that we could certainly see on the interior offensive line, on the offensive and defensive lines, is once the fourth quarter comes around, Texas really having its way.
And Tark, you got anything to add for that, or?
No, but that's something I think that Sark kind of learned from old Nick, is that some days you won't play well, but if you have the depth in the fourth quarter, it will show. I think you really saw that when Alabama played Ole Miss, where after a while, it was just like, okay, sorry, we can't go against these 350-pound guys all day and make it work. And they started running the ball, and Ole Miss is just like, okay, we quit, we're done. It was the same thing with Texas and Wyoming. That fourth quarter where Sark said, you know what, I'm just going to run the ball now. And then they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to stop this. We give up. So that was that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Sark could have just done that from the beginning, but we don't need to get into that.
Fair. Okay, I want to get into at this point. There is a JT Sanders injury update. I'm going to post that on the site either later tonight or tomorrow morning. It's a report from TFB Texas, and it seems like he is. And Tark, you mentioned it earlier. It seems he's trending in the right direction to play on Saturday. Sounds like they have not been doing much of anything to put stress on that ankle this week in practice, which should be obvious, but.
I think he could have gone back in versus Kansas, but I think Sark was just like, I'm not jeopardized. Yeah. He's like, I know I'll win this game, but I need you next week. So
I think the point of this is about the best you could hope for this ankle injury, that it seems like the treatment's going well and, again, trending in the right direction for him. Ryan Watts, I think he's still questionable. I'd assume he's going to be a game time decision. I don't know that for sure, but, Sark is never very forthcoming with injury updates, to say the very least.
Did we ever confirm if it's a knee?
Don't poke the bear.
Knee or an ankle, or for Watts, or what the deal was?
No, but like Sark, we said earlier, I don't know.
That's as much as he would go.
Yeah. Well, that was ABC reporting that, so I don't know if that even came from Sark directly or if it came from like a team rep or something, but I mean, I'm sure it ran through Sark at some point. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Don't poke the bear. Don't ask him that question.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, same thing we said earlier this week, where Sanders is probably a go, and that's really valuable for Texas. You got the bye week next week. You got Houston the week after, so he's got time to recover after. But Ryan Watts, I still feel good about. I mean, I probably feel just as good about Malik Muhammad or Jahdae Barron or Terrence Brooks, whoever playing in boundary in this game.
I think Malik Muhammad is the best corner on the team, but the one thing Watts would be useful for would be, he's a taller cornerback, so he'd match up better with Nick Anderson. But
Nick Anderson goes downfield a lot. That's where Watts been getting beat.
But that's why I'm saying, like, Malik Muhammad and Gavin Holmes can go stride for stride with him, and then it's going to be a jump ball contest, and you know how those things go.
Yeah, I mean, Muhammad plays the ball really well. Gavin Holmes plays the deep ball in pass coverage well, so you have options there. Okay, I think it's prediction time. I'm not doing my bold predictions up on the site this week just because I still have my 4 reasons why the Longhorns could dominate OU, and then my major concerns, which some of them I laid out, but there'll be more on there. Bold prediction. Let's each throw out one along with our score prediction.
Do we have to throw the score prediction? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on now. I gave mine already on the site today. Actually a couple hours ago. I said Texas 37, OU 31. I think it's going to be a close game again. But again, it's not a close game last year. Yeah. I guess I meant to say that it's going to be a close game, that I think it'll be close to the spread.
Okay.
What Vegas has it at now. Bold prediction. And I really haven't thought about it this week, but I'll say that Barron comes up with 2 interceptions this week. He got 1 last year.
That was my pick.
Oh, I mean, you can go with that too. Anyway,
that's fine. I'll pick something else.
Okay, I'll pack. Target. Go ahead.
Bold prediction. I think Jonathan Brooks will rush over 100 yards again on the ground. So that'd be 4 straight for him.
That's really bold.
Against OU's run-stopping defense, apparently it would be. Everyone thinks they're really good, so we'll say that, and I say Texas will score. I'm going to say 42-24.
Wow. So I try to just be completely as objective as possible, because typically I'd be very pessimistic, because it's the battered fan syndrome in me. But if you take away the helmets and you watch these 2 teams play their first 5 games of the season, and you look at the talent on each team, I think there's no doubt that Texas is the better team. And so the score prediction I had in my head is very similar to what Tarik went with. I'm going with 41-23 Longhorns. And my bold prediction is that Jackson Arnold will take more second half snaps than Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, wow.
I think Texas jumps out early, and I think Venables tries to respond with the Jackson Arnold piece.
See, you do that though. Eventually, what you're basically doing is saying, "I'm playing for next season now," even though your season is like not
That's
over
a
at all.
really bold prediction.
And
we're going hot. We're going hot.
Also, it doesn't tend to work out for us well when second string quarterbacks come in for some reason.
Yeah.
Either one of two things happens. Either the second string is Caleb Williams, or the second string plays well enough that they cool the first string down, and then the first string plays like the 5-star he was in Spencer Rattler. So, yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't rule anything out, but okay, so I guess no matter what, if unless y'all literally get one like the score prediction exact, that it's either me or both of y'all that get closest this week. So that's no fun. But all right. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Also, actually, yeah, visitor list, got a pretty big group right now. We'll have more on the site for that. I don't need to talk too much about that right now, though, because obviously that was always going to be a big recruiting weekend. Red River always is. So anyway, stay tuned on the site. Tomorrow I'll be out at Raising Cane's around lunchtime. We got Vince Young, media availability. Something that came about this week. So excited for that. Also check out the site. Did a Quinn Ewers interview earlier this week talking about his venture with the Clay Crew program. I will link that in the description below. I haven't seen any other site do a Quinn Ewers interview, like just in print, if you will. I mean, it was over the phone, but like, yeah. So maybe a good first there. I don't know. I mean, I know he does like media availability, but like a one-on-one separate interview. So something cool.
I think we'd be remiss. We don't have to completely jump down here, but if Quinn Ewers is an average quarterback, like Teddy Lehman said, and the Texas offense is this good with an average quarterback, I couldn't imagine what they do with a good quarterback. Man, either Sarkisian is the best offensive mind of all time, or I don't know. I don't know, man.
And Quinn tends to get up for these big games. He has the last 2 seasons, so I mean, hoping that trend continues. I think it will.
This is his last Red River, most likely.
Yeah. Anyway, for Tarik LaCour, Shane Black, Andrew Miller, HookManLines.com. That's pretty much it. Welcome.
Welcome.